Okay, GTV, we'd like to get started, please.
It's about 5 feet down there. Yeah, that's what I figured.
Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is our regular scheduled meeting for the first meeting of the month of October. As we have a new situation here with our rules of conduct, we are going to have a Pledge of Allegiance to start. Encourage everyone to participate. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, we have some minutes to consider approval of, August the 8th. We'll start with that.
Motion to approve.
Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes as presented? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. September 12th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
This does lead me to comment, though, that I think we need to have a discussion on the font size, because it threw me when it changed.
Okay, well, we can have that discussion again in the meeting if you'll remember to bring it up.
She made it larger
I see.
for
Thank
the
you.
older eyes.
Thank you.
Well, some of us have old eyes, it's easier to read.
I thought it was better than, it just went from 11 to 12. Not a big deal, but
Okay.
it's a little easier to read.
There's no action items for tonight, Joanne? I don't see any.
No, the only thing is that we did hand out the draft copy of the development
I
regulations.
see that.
And I just wanted to ask you if you could take them home and read through them, and then we can schedule a workshop. Well, we have a workshop scheduled for November 4th, I believe. Or
For
7th.
November?
I think it's the
7th.
7th.
If you'd like to talk about them that night. We're also talking about zoning, but we could certainly put
You're gonna have
time
zoning
aside.
discussion the same night as that planning?
No, it's just a workshop that night.
But I'm saying, are you gonna have zoning board members there to discuss
Oh,
zoning changes?
I've asked the chair to ask the zoning board members if they'd like to serve on a subcommittee. And I've talked to Colleen, because she served last year, to see if we could put together a little subcommittee and start working on the zoning changes now.
Good.
I know the building inspector said that he was interested, and I don't know if any other planning board members would
I'm
like
pretty certain that if you're going
participate.
to have a meeting of that substance, you're gonna be stuck with one topic for the night. You're never gonna have time to talk about the development regs. I think it'd be too much to try to jam into one workshop.
Okay.
Anybody differ? Especially if the zoning board, if the building inspector wants to be involved and
Well, I think what she's talking about is having a subcommittee meeting before the 7th.
Right.
And then if there are particular ideas or things that need to be done at the 7th, we would discuss what the subcommittee comes up with.
so
Right.
when are you gonna have a planning board discussion of,
No, it's subcommittee. So Colleen, so last year, I think I was on it, Colleen, the building inspector came, Len Stewart was from the zoning board, you were
Right.
there, we met upstairs and went through some ideas that Joanne had during the year, the building inspector had, and we sort of put together a little, and Len Stewart was there to say what the big thing was that the ZBA kept seeing that he'd like to have
Right,
addressed.
and they've done that exercise. I don't know what the result was, but they have gone through to see what they keep having to act on.
So the subcommittee came up with a list of things, and that's what the planning board talked about on the 7th. It wasn't a ground zero meeting with the planning board. There was
Right.
stuff presented.
It was like a draft idea of some zoning changes, and then the planning board whittled it
I
down.
thought we were talking about development regulations.
Right, but the 7th is the scheduled
I
meeting.
understand that, but you said you
for
wanted to talk
zoning.
about development regulations on the 7th as well, no?
Because I thought if we had time, we could do both.
Right?
Just if we have time.
So
So you want us to try to look at it before the 7th?
Right.
Okay.
Because we have 2 meetings in November, and because of the holiday of Thanksgiving, we have the 7th, and then we have the 14th as a regular
The
meeting.
development regulations don't go to the voters, do they?
No, they
Right,
just,
so we
they're-
could take another month to go over these and fit it into our schedule and review them as a planning board.
yes, and then you don't need to, but it's recommended that you have a public hearing.
We can do that, sure. All right, go to old business to start tonight, Joanne, map 5, lot 20A. This is an application that is coming back to us from the September 12th meeting. Could you give us a quick rundown?
Yes, so when they were last here, there were some outstanding items that they needed to address. And currently, there is a waiver that, the waiver was withdrawn. The conditional use permit was withdrawn. The DPW had commented there. It's just basic.
I don't have any
Yeah,
more
there's-
comments on the design.
This is just basic
No,
things.
they responded to everything.
Since the last meeting, the fire department has commented. The driveway is 165 feet from the road and needs to meet the standard driveway regulations for slope, transition width, turnaround, and curve radius.
That's from who?
This is from the fire department.
Since when does the fire department comment on a driveway that doesn't have NFPA implications?
It's because it was asked for to make sure that because of the way the driveway is with the steep slopes, that it was okay for the fire truck to get up there, and that,
See, now we're back to the fire department telling us about driveway regulations. The fire department does not, they can make comments, but we have our own regulations regarding the driveways that everybody has to apply.
this is, the chief right now is commenting on fire department, and he's kind of just feeling his way, because he doesn't normally do this. So this is what he offered.
Yeah, he was picking Eric's brain recently
I would advise,
driveway stuff, so that might be why.
I would advise the board to accept comment, but realize that we have our own regulations, and if it's under the NFPA regulations, we're going to enforce the regulations anyway. So,
Well,
beside the point.
They had a turning template, I don't see it.
oh,
in the
let me just
paper,
finish
though.
what he said, reading what he said. The applicant did provide a turning plan using the dimensions of the Goffstown fire apparatus demonstrating an engine could maneuver in this design. The applicant has met the fire department concerns and approves the design plans related to fire and life safety requirements.
And back to my comments.
So staff is recommending approval of this plan with conditions. And I have one condition that I'd like to add that was in Scott's recommendation, and I eliminated it, and after speaking with Scott, I put it back. And that would be added as number 16, that a pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of any work. And normally
That's
we...
number 6.
Oh, is it already in there? Oh, sorry, okay, take that out then. Normally, we don't hold pre-construction meetings for a 2-lot subdivision with a house, but because of the situation with the slopes and everything, they wanted to, and the drainage and the other issues that have already been discussed, they wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page.
Yeah, basically what it is whenever we are having construction inspection done, we prefer to have that pre-con meeting, so our consultant and whatever town staff feels necessary to be there, we can just all get on the same page, make points of contact, and understand you need to call so-and-so when you're gonna do this so they can come and inspect it, and so that's why I wanted that back on there.
Question? Go.
Well, it's my recollection, and I just looked at the minutes, that really we were sort of fine with this, absent figuring out a 4K, and you still had some drainage calculation issues, and sort of none of that is really stated here. So the bottom line is, the remaining issues the planning board had last time have been worked out.
Yep.
The drainage maintenance agreement they found is proposed will be done.
Yeah.
So DPW, which was really
Yeah.
what the issues were, has resolved the issues.
Yep, they
Okay.
reworked some of the pond. They showed a graded area for where the 4K will go, where the septic bed will go. So all my concerns were met.
Because that's really all we had. with
Yeah,
this.
I think
The
that
drive-
was the last of
driveway,
it.
where the
Yeah.
driveway was gonna be located, absent the
Yeah.
issues with the turning were, okay. All right. So everybody got everything done?
Yep.
Okay.
Are there any outstanding issues, Joanne?
No, there are no outstanding issues other than what we've listed in the conditions.
All right, well, then we'll ask the applicants to come up to the table if they'd like to add anything at this time. Please state your name for the record when you come up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is John LaFave with Fieldstone Land Consultants. Here tonight with the applicant, Camden Lawrence. Your recap is fairly accurate. We had, at our last meeting, when the chair was not here, come to the conclusion that there was some additional comments we weren't aware of. We've addressed them. Scott had worked with us, and we appreciate that. Thank you. So we got it done in time for this meeting. There's been some changes to the grading, the stormwater management calculations, a few things that had to be addressed from Scott's comments were taken care of. The fire department had been asked to review the driveway design, and I don't believe they gave any formal comments. The chief didn't have time to do that. The new acting chief was asked to review the material and had provided a letter. And his letter states that he has no concerns for the plan, so I believe we've met all the conditions and addressed all the comments that were brought to our attention. If there's any further questions from the board, I'd be happy to answer them.
Board members? Nice quiet group, I like that. Anything from staff or from Public Works?
No.
Okay. All right, since we're on a quick run here, I will ask if there is, we're going to open the public hearing at this time. You can
Sure.
stay seated, and if no one wants to speak, you don't have to vacate the chairs. So at this time, we'll open a public hearing. Is anyone here to speak regarding this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members.
I make a motion to approve, finding that the application meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and is consistent with the intent of our regulations, and that approval of the plans incorporate the staff recommendations 1 through 15.
Second.
Did you include the finding of fact? I was listening.
That's what I was trying to say at the beginning.
It's written right here on page 7.
No, I made it up, because I'm a lawyer and that's what I do.
So,
It was pretty close.
Was it?
the motion to approve.
I was more wordy, like a true lawyer. I made it 3 times as long.
They get paid by the word.
Motion to approve has been made by Barbara, including the findings of fact. Do I have a second?
I second.
Bill seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. We thank you for your patience.
Thank
We
you.
want to thank you too for your time.
Good luck with
Thank
your
you, Jim.
project.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next application is also old business, map 4, lot 63. This has been going on for a little time. Joanne, please.
Yes, so this application was before you previously. You had found the application complete. However, it had 2 waiver requests that need to be acted on, and there is no regional impact. The applicant did waive the 65-day clock. So the two waivers are the wetland delineations of the entire site and the soil, excuse me, soil mapping. They are asking for waivers for. The Conservation Commission, this one was held aside because the Conservation Commission had wanted to do a site walk, which they did on September 4th. They had reviewed at their meeting and came up with the following comments, I guess you'd call it, with a unanimous vote. Do you want me to read them, or?
Should read them into the record, please.
Okay. Number one is, based on the plan presented, the setback for the proposed home location are observed and are shown in the best location from the shoreline. Number two, the site location for the wetland crossings for the driveway is in the best location and in the least environmentally impacted area. Number three, any impacts to threatened or special species of concerns will be addressed by New Hampshire Fish and Game. Number four, the commission recommends, as recommended in the report from New Hampshire Fish and Game, to put at the 50-foot buffer of the shoreline, no cut, no disturbed placards, and the placards should be placed every 100 feet along that 50-foot buffer of the boundary. Number five, they should conform to all local, state, and federal requirements. Number six, staff to include the NHB report from Fish and Game. Number seven, recommend that once the applicant has finished cleaning up the remainder of the property with regards to the waste, and the owner notify the town and the town verify the cleanup has occurred. The commission noted that the owner stated the time frame could be within a year, but left the time frame of the cleanup up to the planning board. A report was also received from New Hampshire Fish and Game, which can be found in your packet.
Did you receive all these comments?
Yes.
Yeah, we got the fishing game one.
Yep.
Because you can have my copy if you didn't get it.
I have the email, sure.
The assessing department stated that this property is currently in current use, and based on the plan, 2+ acres would come out when the construction started. If they sell it, 100% comes out, as it does not meet the 10-acre minimum. Again, the driveway, this is a long driveway, and it has to meet the NFPA rules due to the length. And staff is recommending approval of this application with conditions.
Did you talk, so we talked about the waivers as well, so we'll act on waivers after we have a public hearing. So at this time, I'd like the applicants to identify yourselves and tell us if there's anything else you'd like to add at this time.
My name's Joe Mulaney. I believe we addressed everything that you were looking for. The whole purpose of it is, I know, you know my son, the goal here is I'm building this house. So this is what it's gonna look like. Every door on the inside will be 36 inches, everything will be in a truss. To find housing for anybody now is unbelievable. To find housing for someone in his situation, it's like times 1,000. There's no group homes in New Hampshire, so this house is completely in a trust, all handicap accessible, wheel in and out the back through the garage, and that's the whole goal of this whole ideal. So that's what we're doing. I believe we covered everything for your concerns on the plans, so now it's just
Thank you.
keep plugging away.
My name is Chris Chandler.
You're the owner, Chris, at this time?
I'm the owner, yeah.
Okay. One of the Conservation Commission's comments is cleaning up the property.
Yeah.
You agree to
Oh, yeah.
these conditions, you'll take
Yeah,
care of all?
absolutely. Yeah, I have been for the last 3 years, so.
So
board-
if we could just add, as staff, I don't remember the year that Mr. Chandler purchased the property, but Scott had looked back at 2014, I believe it was, on the maps.
Oh, yeah, so we have like a aerial mapping for the town that goes back to 2014, and the majority of the trash area was there. It seems like some of it has migrated, like I think he said he's cleaning up the site, so
Yeah, there was
It was a
seven-
mess before you owned it.
There was 7 campers back
Yeah.
there stuffed with junk and personal belongings and trash, paint cans, I mean, you name it, it was in there. So I've taken everything, a lot of the camper stuff's mostly gone. There's bicycles, wheelchairs, gas grills, everything in a pile of metal that I gathered up. There's a small pile of paint cans and stuff that I still need to dispose of, and, yeah, I mean, just slowly collecting everything and putting it into, either hauling it off or putting it into reasonable areas. Mostly trying to move everything away from the wetlands, the conservation areas, the rivers, anything that could be harmful anyway. Moving it up to higher ground.
Currently, he's basically in violation of the current use regulations, which state that you're not allowed to have any of that stuff. So the assessor's working with him
Yeah.
to try to give some time to have him get it all out of there, because it is expensive to dispose of.
So just to be clear, the conservation's recommendation is you finish cleaning up the remainder of the property. So it is your intent to remove all the rest of the debris, or are you keeping some of it for yourself?
No, I'm gonna get
Clean it
everything,
up
all the
100%.
metal's gonna be gone, all the trash is gonna be gone. Anything out in the woods remaining is all gonna be picked up and disposed of.
I would invite the board to either concur with the recommendation from the Conservation Commission on number 7 that has set a deadline for this to be done, or if the board in some way feels it's too stringent and the board would like to do something other than what the Conservation Commission has recommended. So that would be a discussion item for us before the end of the evening. The rest of the stuff seems all pretty much required or law and such, but I just would like to discuss number 7 as a board prior to any final decision. Board members have any questions for the applicant?
I've got a question, maybe more for Joanne, but the CONSCOM recommendation to put the buffer placards on the 50-foot shoreland buffer, we've got the condition on the 100-foot wetland and watershed conservation district buffer. Does that 100-foot buffer apply to the shoreland as well? Will that cover the 50 feet the CONSCOM is asking for? Or do we need 2
I
layers of
think it's
buffer
more
placards?
stringent than what
It's more
Concom's
stringent, so
asking
we're
for,
not,
yeah.
okay, I wasn't sure if our wetlands district applies to the shoreland as well. or just the
Doesn't
wetlands.
shoreline go out
It's the
250?
surface water, that's what I have here, wetland surface water conservation, which applies to the
Which includes the
shoreline.
river.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it would be the same shoreline that DES categorizes, that we go 100 feet off versus the 50 that
The 50,
Concom was
okay.
recommending.
So the 100-foot or 50-foot is our decision, which we're gonna set them at, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that our 100 feet applies to the shoreland, or
I just-
encompasses that shoreland, and it sounds like it does.
I just
So
got
that's all.
confused because I'm thinking shoreline protection, which is 250 feet, and that's a different number altogether.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's different offsets of the shoreline too, like the initial 50 feet you can't even cut.
Right.
And then the next 100 feet, there's other
Right, I understand
rules.
that, but I'm just saying, I just want to clear up which shoreland word we're using, whether it's
I think we're basing it off the WSWC.
our rules and
Yeah.
regulations. Okay.
Because we've been requiring that on a lot of these
Yeah.
applications recently, so.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else from the
Question.
staff? Barbara?
The 6th number on the conservation recommendation says staff to include the NHB report from New Hampshire Fish and Game. So we have the thing that Patty forwarded us from New Hampshire Fish and Game Review. And I have to say, I don't recall seeing one of these, certainly not recently. So I've got a couple of questions on the process because I don't know whether the applicant can address this. New Hampshire Shoreland Standard Permit, not yet filed. Wetlands Standard Dredge and Fill, not yet filed. I'm assuming they're gonna have to do that for the crossing.
They have the application, I think you're waiting for the property to be under your name before you submit it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, again, I haven't seen this before, so Conservation says to include the report. I don't quite know how we include the report. It's not.
We don't want to include it in anything here because then it becomes public information and that stuff is privy to information because it could give known locations of endangered or,
You're kidding.
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't want to include that in anything that this board gets because then it, so I don't think that's, because then it, right to know and everything and then people could find. I think when you get it from DES or from Fish and Game, it says do not share this information, typically.
But it wants you to attach the species flyers to the plan sheet set.
Correct, but that's so the contractor doesn't go near that area, and it also gives them information on what to do if they encounter that animal. So if they see that animal while they're working, they're supposed to stop work, call DES, or there may be some other steps, but we don't want it, because
I think those items will be covered under the DES approvals. DES
Exactly,
is
their
going to attach
wetland
those as
permit.
conditions when they get their wetland
Yeah.
permit. So
When they get their wetland permit.
correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, it's a requirement from DES, so I don't know why this board needs to have or why staff needs to include it.
If DES requires it, they don't get permits without meeting DES
Correct,
regulations.
yeah,
It could just be a footnote for us. It doesn't have to be any discussion item at all.
yeah.
So what is the process going to be? Because I just thought that was sort of unusual, and now I'm finding it almost entertaining, now that these spots
So
are secret.
there'll be construction plans with wetland impacts and everything that are submitted with the wetland permit or the shoreline permit, actually both. And New Hampshire Fish and Game will require I think there are threatened or endangered species known close to this area, so they did get some information on that. So they have to include that info on the plans that will ultimately make it in the contractor's hands, but they don't need to be on the plans that get recorded, for sure. Because the record plans aren't what the contractor's gonna build off typically anyway.
Right, you're handing them to
So-
us. All right, we'll go through this. I'm just a little confused as to the process, and I'm trying to tie it all together because we're talking about a year to clean up, a deed recorded within 6 months. Sure, we need a wetlands permit, we need, so
Yeah.
exactly what's the process on this flow going to be so we don't have,
So the plans are not signed by the chair until the conditions are met. One of the
Right.
conditions is the state permits. So
But-
they have to have all that wrapped up before they can.
so is
Well,
the
is that-
cleanup and the deed 6 months from the signing, or is it from the
The-
approval?
We don't typically require the wetland permit to be complete before the plans are signed, do we?
Yeah.
So we're then forcing the applicants to submit a wetland permit under one name, and then they have to go through the process of, now that the new owner has the permit, it's permitted under them and not the previous owner.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of work.
So that's
I
why
don't
I'm
think
buying
so.
the 5 acres out, so we're just submitting it on my piece of property, not the whole
Yeah.
property.
Well,
They can't build without it, so I don't know why, and we don't even typically review it. I know it goes to Concom, it goes to
we just get a copy of it.
LAC, which is I don't even remember what that acronym is, but it's,
We get a copy of it.
yeah,
Just the
the
River
town clerk has
Advisory
to sign
Committee gonna
them.
start
Yeah,
getting
that's
stuff?
what it is.
When it's river, just start with P and we usually get there.
Okay.
I think the approval would the only concern would be if we were subdividing, or we're approving a subdivision
Right.
that does not have the ability to have a driveway accessing it, but because the driveway requires
Yeah.
the wetland impact, but if you could, as long as we're creating a lot that theoretically, what they're not doing, but what they could theoretically do is put a house at the front of the lot, and then we wanna make sure if we're creating a lot of record, that they can actually build something on it.
Okay.
Re-
Yeah, I
So,
mean, the
but in-
crossing isn't a
Yeah,
I don't think it's a huge issue, and actually, it looks like there is enough buildable land up front technically.
I think in this case, though, what we've
Not
heard
with the setback.
is that they'd be requesting, because right now we've got a
Definitely.
staff recommendation for a condition that those permits, like we normally require, are a condition of approval, including the wetlands and shoreland. So maybe the wetland and shoreland permits are a subsequent condition rather than a precedent condition. And I think it's a little bit unusual, but if staff is comfortable with that, it sounds like Scott's
I mean,
comfortable with it.
it could be a condition to not approve, can we not approve the building permit if they can't get a shoreline or a wetland crossing?
We don't issue building permits.
No, but I'm saying, could that be a condition on the plan?
I think we're going
Yeah,
way in too deep at this point.
I think maybe staff can just handle it then.
okay.
I do think, though, then that we just need to reword, because the way that this condition of approval is that all of these permits shall be obtained
Right.
as a condition of approval. I think we just need to make that that's a condition subsequent to be addressed with staff. So that's not required prior to plan signature, would be just my recommendation.
So they're
Yeah.
required before a building permit.
Yeah.
Tim, I have a question.
Bill?
Yeah, kind of following up between Laura and what Scott had said, I mean, if you go to, well, the page is not marked, but it says include attached flyer to plan sheet set, but if you look at that, it says the recommendations below should be incorporated into site plans below the permit conditions aforementioned in order to help minimize potential take to rare wildlife species. If not incorporated and impacts to the species were to occur, applicants may be legally liable for take. So I guess I'm a little confused. Is that saying that this should be in the plan? And are we then we're hearing that,
It said construction plan, didn't it? So,
it
That,
says site plan.
that's the Fish and Game's kind of standard recommended permit condition. So when Fish and Game, so when DES is issuing a permit, this is basically Fish and Game's recommendation to DES on what DES should attach to those shoreland and wetland permits. So I think the Conscom wanted us to have this for our information, but I don't think that we should be attaching Fish and Game's conditions to our approval. We just know that DES is gonna put those, and the applicant is aware that that'll be coming from DES on that.
Because it's only a recommendation to DES.
Yeah.
From Fish and Game.
A recommendation or a requirement?
Fish and Game is recommending that DES include that in their approvals.
and they
you can be
always
sure
do the.
DES will
yeah,
comply.
Yeah.
But it mentions specifically site plans. Where are site plans outside of the planning board?
So this is not a site plan, they're just using that as like basic
Generic term.
language, like site plan, like.
I think they use the word incorrectly.
It's a
Why?
nebulous term which doesn't apply to the planning approval. It's a
How
con-
did we
it's
end
a
up
construction
seeing this?
activity.
Is Fish and Game not involved in very many applications? Is that sort of why it's here? Because it almost sounds like this is something normally that happens as part of the DES wetlands permit, and we never see
Yeah, we
anything.
I
don't
think it was
typically see
because
See,
it-
then we
when it
don't have to
went to.
talk
con-
about it.
Right, that's why I'm wondering
Yeah.
why.
When
That's
when
what
it
it's
went to
normally.
conservation, conservation wanted the planning board to have a copy as well, so that's why you have
Well, then
it.
conservation is the one that's within their purview, so.
So really, this is to be included in the file. This is not to be
For
attached to
discussion.
plans as
No.
it's, okay. Thank you.
So what you have the actual thing from Fish and Game?
It looks different than what,
From Patrick Food Williams, Wildlife Biology, New Hampshire Fish and Game.
but it's not like, you know, what the inventory hits used to look like, because Phil brought it up last
Oh,
time, about
okay.
like a year ago.
Yeah.
It looks a little different now, and it doesn't have that big like confidential disclaimer. So I don't think this is the actual like hit that gets generated when you.
Oh,
go to
it does, it
Natural
has the
Heritage.
flyer in it. So,
Yeah, the flyers are there.
Yeah. All the turtles are shown.
Do you recognize any of them, Phil?
No.
Have you seen any of those turtles?
It was the free-floating logs.
All right, so we're gonna have this included for the record and not a discussion item, if everyone agrees to that.
That at least doesn't have the map
Do we
in it.
have any other questions or comments for applicants or staff before I open the public hearing?
The only, is staff good with, I worry about if it's, as long as everyone knows what cleaning up the property means.
Well, we're
so
gonna
that
talk
there's
about
not-
that.
We're gonna talk about that,
We're
not
gonna
just the
talk about
timeframe,
that.
but what
That's
that.
why
Okay,
I
thank you.
put it as a discussion item prior to anything being decided tonight.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Anyone here to speak regarding this application? I'm gonna open the public hearing.
Joe's got some stuff he wants to say.
His name's on the next one. 7:26. Seeing no one here, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Let's talk about waivers first. What's the first waiver request, Joanne?
I believe there's only one waiver request.
I thought I heard you
Oh,
say
no,
two.
there's two, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Wetland delineations are the first one,
Wetlands delineation?
of the entire site. They did do the parcel that's being subdivided off.
And there was no recommendation from conservation.
They made-
No, they didn't include a comment on it.
You know, I know.
I noticed that.
I think it seems to be a common request because of some of these really large sites. They're only going to impact a small portion of the site. I think this is a fair waiver request to make, and I think we're seeing a lot of them lately. You want to discuss the wetlands delineation of the entire site waiver request?
Make a motion to approve that request for a waiver.
Is it grant or approve? Grant the waiver? Grant the waiver? Motion to grant the waiver by Colleen.
Second.
Second by Richard. Do we have to make any findings when we talk about granting waivers, Joanne? Or
No,
just,
you
we
don't
can
need
just
to do
decide?
that.
Yes or no?
I'd just say they provided sufficient wetland delineation to demonstrate that the lots meet the zoning and subdivision regulations.
Thank you for that. Any discussion on the motion to grant the waiver for the wetland delineation of the entire site? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, motion passes. What's the second waiver, Joanne?
Soil mapping.
Has the soil been mapped for the area that's in discussion?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to grant the waiver for soil mapping on the entire site because sufficient soil mapping's been provided for the new lot being created to demonstrate compliance with the zoning and development regulations.
Colleen's made a motion to grant the waiver for
Where,
the,
could I ask where the soil mapping has been provided? I'm just a little confused.
Sheet 204 has
Yeah,
the,
204
Oh,
has the
it's over
soil
on the
mapping.
test
It's got
pit
the
data on
different,
side. Okay, thank
different
you.
types labeled and
yeah, the soil
Yeah.
designation.
Okay.
it's a table over on the right there.
do I have a second?
I'll second. I thought it had been, sorry.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of granting the waiver for the soil mapping of the entire site, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Okay. So we're back to the discussion about the Conservation Commission's recommendation, number 7, that once the applicant has finished cleaning up the remainder of the property with regards to the waste, the owner notify the town, and the town verify the cleanup is incurred. The commission noted the owner's stated timeframe with a year, but left time frame for the cleanup to the planning board. So, my only concern is that we're a little bit out of our boundaries, setting timelines for cleanups of people's property. We don't know anything about what's on the property. I don't know if we have the authority to even do that personally. I don't think we're granted the authority anywhere in the regulations, but I think there's discretion for site plan approvals.
Well, I mean, I think there's some justification for putting some deadlines on this because of the significant wetlands on this site. Wetlands change over time, and I'm not saying that anything's going to change in 6 months or a year, but
I mean, I looked
I
at
don't know that approving this, I mean, it's not gonna get signed until the permit. Are we going to agree that the subdivision is going to be approved before the permits are obtained? Because then the plan is getting recorded, and now you have a subdivided lot that you were solely dependent on the building department in regards to the issuance of a building permit. So I do sort of think, given that we're doing the sort of swapping how we usually do the conditions, that some timeframes might be appropriate.
Well, I'm looking at the pictures that the conservation provided us on the site walk report. The first picture of is an illegal wetlands crossing. Obviously, they're gonna deal with this and get a permit to correct this wetlands crossing as part of the application, right? Is this picture of the two concrete culverts that are filled over, is
Yeah,
that on
down-
your lot or is that on the proposed lot?
That's on my lot.
Okay, so that's an action you may have to deal with on your own with, now that they know about it.
So
Yeah,
those,
yeah, I mean, that's been there for years. So, I mean, I don't-
that's
Whether-
it, that goes all the way back to our pictures or our imagery in 2014.
It seems to me the,
I think there's some new gravel on it, that's all.
the Conservation Commission took a picture of some tires and some gas cans and an empty oil jug and a bucket full of debris, paint cans. I would take the applicant at his word that he's gonna clean these things up and get rid of them. They don't appear to be a mountain of hazardous materials as far as I mean, I have the same paint cans, except mine are in the barn. They're not sitting in the bucket outside.
Well,
I
that
probably
would
have-
be part of the difference. And
So if-
they're by law.
Have you seen the photos that were provided?
Oh, yeah, I've seen them.
So is this seems to be the worst of the worst, this.
Yeah, that's the stuff that came out of those campers, like I was saying.
And
the
you're
paint
going
cans
to
and
get
stuff.
rid of all this
Oh,
stuff?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I don't
Um,
want it.
The only thing,
I don't want it sitting around.
that, and this is on your property, this is not even on the proposed
Right, yeah,
subdivided
it's my-
property.
Yeah, this is, what, a couple 100 feet away from the proposed
I-
property.
I'm very concerned about us putting stipulations on the parent lot that don't pertain to the subdivided lot, because we have no information, real information on the parent lot. Pile of logs, that'd be great, I wish that pile of logs was on my property.
Well, Joanne, you
And
said,
that's all stuff I hauled in from jobs I've done, that's not even from the property.
assessing is working with him about getting the site
So,
cleaned up anyway, right?
he-
So it's not like this
so
is
he
just
can-
gonna drop off.
So the assessor can call the state and complain, and they would take that out of current use, and he would have to pay the full amount of assessment on the land. Or, he said, this is what he told me, or he could work with him and have the building inspector included as code enforcement to, get that stuff off the property and clean it up. And he was going to, what he told me was he'd rather work with him. So that's kind of where they're at right now. So as a condition of approval, I just put here that the owner of Lot 63 shall notify the town building inspector and planning director once the remainder of the property is cleaned up, and the town will verify that the cleanup has occurred. The cleanup shall be completed no later than 1 year from the date of approval of this subdivision plan.
And I completely disagree with the entire statement 17. I think we're pushing our authority beyond the bounds of the subdivided lot. If this gentleman decides to clean his land up, that's his business. If he's in violation and someone else wants to go after him, I think that's someone else's job. But I do not think that we should be stipulating number 17 in our conditions of approval.
We have done that
Thank you,
in
Mr.
regards to approvals
Appreciate that.
of operations, and I'm trying to think of subdivisions, but I will say that cleanup has been,
Clean it up regardless, so.
Well, we had it with the lot behind the auto place down in Penardville when they wanted to put the towing yard in. The guy had a massive junkyard back.
and we made them clean it up.
Because he was going to utilize that site.
Well, but I understand the distinction that you're making between and I don't want to use the remainder lot as compared to the new lot.
Yeah.
And I do get that, but,
I mean, I don't want to become the lot police here.
no, I understand
Because
that,
if-
so I don't know how to
you could
balance it,
probably
because
drive
I
a-
think we granted waivers for this new site to go in that don't deal with the whole site, and this gentleman is, this site has been sort of notorious over the years, so I didn't do the site walk this time, but I've done one in the past, so I know that there has probably been a lot of cleanup that's gone on. So I don't doubt the issue or that he's going to comply with it,
And
so.
unfortunately, you could probably find this stuff on 50 other lots in the town of Goffstown somewhere if you really wanted to go out and start nosing around on people's property. So,
Okay.
so I think we should have a consensus of the board members on number 17 regarding leaving it in or taking it out. So we'll
Is
state
this
now-
stuff part of the assessor issue in regards to what the use of the property is? So the assessor is really sort of handling the use, which includes the storage of all this crap. Not that I'm calling
Well,
your
it's not
stuff
storage,
crap.
it just hasn't made it to the dump yet.
But
I
from an
can show you
observation
pictures of my
standpoint,
trailer
it's,
full of
it's,
trash.
2 years ago, it looks way better, you know,
Yeah,
and my
he
lot's
knows.
clean.
He knows.
So, I was errant at the beginning of the meeting and not appointing David as a voting member tonight because we are missing
I've been voting all along.
well, I was errant in not formally appointing you, so
Thank you,
all
sir.
your votes are valid and I thank you.
Oh, we don't have to reaffirm the
Let's go
votes?
back.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We'll use Alan's rules. Whatever he says goes. Okay. So we're going to start with David. What's your consensus on 17?
I believe the applicant said that this clutter of material is it on the newly divided portion of the land, or is it on?
No, it's
the
on,
parent?
it's on the, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a role in cleaning up the parent lot.
Okay, Richard?
I mean, I'm, same here, I don't understand how we can force him to do something on his lot when it's the other gentleman's lot we're looking at here tonight.
Barbara?
I would point out that we are looking at both lots.
Both lots.
However, given we are clearly looking at both lots, because if the remainder lot didn't meet zoning, we would not be approving this. We don't just look at the new lot to see if it qualifies. But given the representation that assessor and the owner are currently in discussion on this, and the town is aware of it, I'm okay with leaving it off, because the building department, there can always be a citation issue for health and safety in regards to this kind of stuff being on a lot.
Colleen?
I agree. I think that there are others that have authority, mainly the assessor, over the cleanup for the current use issue. So I don't think we should be putting this condition on the plating approval.
I think 17 should be removed. Phil?
I agree with that. I mean, I do have concerns about some of the material that's there. There are a couple of other issues too. We also have laws in the town for how many unregistered motor vehicles, so I think campers, home, whatever they are there, if they're still there, I think the authorities here in town have been made aware of that. They may have been all cleaned up at this point. The tires and the other items over there do come under other items with DES, and there are junkyard statutes that define storage and stuff like that. So I think it's all been made aware of, and I think it's hopefully it's under control.
And your statement is to leave it or take it out?
I think we should take it out.
Thank you. Mark?
Remove it.
Thank you. So number 17 will be stricken from the conditions of approval.
Mr. Chair,
David?
condition number, the number, physical number 6 appears to be placed in the wrong place. The phrases after the number 6 seem to be related to number 5.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be one.
Oh,
Those
number
two
5 should
Oh, yeah.
include this.
Comment.
So the number 6 should,
Just be removed?
well, be removed and all
But-
subsequent numbers -1.
So all the rest of the dialogue that was in number 6 belongs in number 5?
Yep.
Okay. So Joanne, we'll go from 5 to 7. We won't renumber them all. We'll just have
Well, she can administratively
She can
remember it when they
administratively.
issue the
So
notice
there-
of decision.
There are two conditions that should be added. Is the pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of any work?
So do you want to make that number 6? Pre-construction
Sure.
meeting required?
Sure. And then the site inspections, just find it from the other one. Site inspection by town or town's representative paid for by the owner shall be required for general plan conformance, erosion control, and drainage. A final inspection is required before a certificate of occupancy is issued. An escrow payment shall be made to the town prior to the pre-construction meeting. And again, this is a single-family home, this is not normally done, but because of the wetlands
And
and
when they have,
drainage.
when they have stormwater BMPs, we've
Yeah.
been doing it,
So
so.
it's kind of a little different from normal.
So do you understand what that condition was, both of you? In other words, inspections on the property as things progress, either will be done by the town or by the town's representative. In either case, you have to pay either one because you have to establish an escrow account to pay for the town employees, or you'll be billed for the third party.
So,
engineer.
yeah, we'll send the third-party consultant the plans, basically give them the notice of decision. It'll say, you know, to inspect drainage. They'll figure out how many times they need to go out there, make an estimate. We'll give you the estimate. You provide us with the check, we throw it in an escrow account. They come out, they inspect, they bill us, we pay them. If there's a remainder in that account, once the construction's done, you get the remainder returned to you.
And if they are working and it costs more than the original estimate, then they will ask you to give them
Yes.
some additional money for inspection.
Hopefully isn't the case with your site, because it's pretty simple.
Okay. Do we have any other outstanding issues, Joanne?
No, I think that's it.
Were you provided with a list of the conditions for approval?
I was.
Including the placard, do you understand what that's all about?
I have one question about the placards.
Go ahead.
Do we need them at 100 feet and the 50 feet, or
No.
does the 100 feet sufficient?
It's at a
enough?
100-foot buffer spaced
Okay.
50 feet apart.
All right, you guys are going back and forth. For a
And
minute.
then there's-
I get lost.
There's actually a certain size placard, and I think it's 4x4, it's something small, they're not very big, are
Say
they?
5 by 7, I think, right?
Well, whatever, the Conservation Commission, I think, is the one who has told us what, to try to keep them uniform around town so they're all thing. And they have to be on a steel stake
Yeah,
bolted to a
and
steel
at least
stake.
4 feet high, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So you understand what they are, and you'll get,
Yeah.
somebody will help you figure out. Okay.
Patty can give you show you a sample.
Yeah, you can go right online and find it. I've seen them before.
Okay.
I'm pretty
All
sure
right,
that's.
does
what
any,
you want.
any more questions or outstanding issues for the applicant or for staff from board members? Well, I wrote it down, but I haven't put anybody's names next to it yet.
Are you looking for a motion to approve?
That's generally the next step.
Yes,
And I
it
wrote
is.
motion to
Alright.
approve, like I always do, and I usually put people's names
I
next to
know,
it.
that's what you were waiting for.
With the findings
So you're
that,
just holding out intentionally?
Yeah.
with
She's not
the,
ready to go home.
with
Yeah.
the,
I
I'm
was
sure.
waiting to see who else
being
got
that the
on.
waivers were granted, I would find that the plan meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and development regulations, and would recommend approval with the 17 now conditions of approval, number 17 being the site inspections, is read by Joanne,
Number 6.
and number 6 to be the pre-construction meeting, to be held prior to any work on the site. And I guess, number 5, do we need to make clear, Joanne, that the wetland and shoreland permits are subsequent so that the plan can be approved? The subdivision plan can be signed with those wetland and shoreland permits being subsequent to the signature on the subdivision plan?
I think you're asking a question, Joanne.
I saw her nodding, so.
No,
think
I
that's-
said yes.
You
Okay.
might have been falling asleep, though.
No, she's writing it all
I'm
down.
writing it down.
So that's my motion.
All right, so there's a motion to approve with findings of fact and statement of the conditions of approval. Is anybody ready to second the motion at this time?
Right, second.
Can I just ask a question?
Please.
If we are allowing the plan to be signed and recorded, do we need a note on the plan that this plan is being recorded prior to obtaining the required permits?
I think that's a fair statement.
Because normally they would be required with the permit information. So if someone was to look at this lot online in a transaction, they would have no idea that that was an issue as compared to an approved lot that hasn't been built that has the permits in place.
So what would the note be that you would want to add at some place on the conditions page?
Prior to issuance of a building permit, all permits, including but not limited to those listed in that condition, shall be obtained.
So I think a note needs to be added to
On the recorded
sheet
sheet.
1
Yep.
saying that. So another condition will be to add a note to sheet 1, the subdivision plan, that whatever the permits are to be obtained prior to the issuance of any building permit.
Those are shoreland standard permit
Shoreland and wetland.
and a wetland standard dredge and fill.
Even though the plan is signed and recorded, you're saying even though it's signed and recorded?
Right, you're
it
saying
needs
prior
be
to any
stated on the
building.
plan
Yep.
that prior to the building permit, any building permits being
Right.
issued.
So that recorded plan will have that note on it.
So make it a condition of approval, so it's
Doesn't
on our
number
record, so
5
the
kinda-
building department,
Kind of say that in a roundabout way.
well,
It says it, but I think having the note on the recorded plan makes it clear
Are you
that.
Don't the
Fine, just like
conditions
right
typically
away.
make it on the, isn't
No.
that?
yeah, but see, this plan is getting signed before
So
he
we
has
might
those
wanna
permits.
have-
Normally,
Yeah.
the chair
Have
does
your
not
name
get
on
the
it.
plan to sign before that.
We have the applicant has
Versus
questions. I'd like to
your
hear what the applicant has to say, not just.
I thought it was already said that, yeah, you have to have the shoreline permits done.
It just doesn't say on the plan, and so when you record this at the registry, let's just say something happens and you decided to sell the lot, the person who purchased it would have no idea that it wasn't a buildable lot. They would assume because it was recorded, they could build on it. And the issue is, to build on it,
You need
The only other-
permits
You're gonna
and-
need permits.
Right, but on the sheet that the town said, you said you need this to get a permit.
The only other option is not
the
to sign
notice
that.
of
but it's
decision
not
does
on
not
this.
go
It's
to the
on the-
registry of deeds.
All right.
See, as I understand it, you wanted the plan to be approved and signed so you could apply for the permits in your name.
That's correct.
So
Do you
we
need a
can't, we
recorded-
can't sign and approve the plan unless we state on the plan
All right,
that
then-
you still have to get all your wetlands permits.
That's fine.
And that way,
So
buyer,
you're-
let the buyer beware in disclosures if you decide to get rid of the lot because things change for you. They would understand that even though this is an approved subdivision, that no building permits will be issued until all those plans, those
Right.
permits have been obtained that you want to do.
Right, I know, but that's, I read that in the towns, and I understood that.
Okay.
But I wasn't thinking I was selling that.
Well, you don't know.
Right.
Mr. Chair, whatever, we're discussing all these permits, isn't that covered under condition number 5?
No, that's a standard condition that we have,
Yeah, it's just-
notifying the applicant that he still needs to get that.
I think Barbara's point
That doesn't
is
go
va-
on the plan.
I think Barbara's point is valid, because once the plan is signed, anybody else who might decide that they're gonna buy this lot from the
Okay,
applicant,
I understand.
that the
Thank you.
wetlands permits are not actually in place at the time when it was signed. even though they may be subsequent, like a month later or 2 months later, or however long DES
They
takes to
said
do their
30
thing.
days to turn around.
Joanne, don't we require all these approval conditions to be on the plans?
They're on, it's,
Yeah,
the
the-
conditions of approval have to
Note
be on
number
the
one
plan
requires any
set.
outstanding approval
So-
condition to be
so
on the
that will
plan. So
need to
number
be
5
done.
would be on the plan. If we want to change the way it's worded to include,
What I was gonna say is,
you know,
if you
That's
purchase
such a
it
generic
before
one
it's
that we put
recorded,
on all of them, though. That's-
Yeah.
then
That's why I
it's now
wanted to
your
add it, 'cause-
land.
So
It's
Joanne,
yeah,
are you-
it-
plan.
we might as well just add it, so.
That's
it's-
this way.
yeah.
Are you clear what Barbara wants to have written on the plan? Have the applicant's
Yeah, I wrote it down.
subdivision plan, whoever drew this plan, Scott
I didn't draw
Italian,
this plan.
has to,
Well, we can add it, we can, yeah, just,
No,
you
this
said
is
it needs to
done.
be on the plan, though, on the
Yeah.
plan sheet. So
We
it
can
has to
add a note about what you said, and then all of these conditions will also have to go on the cover
Okay.
sheet.
all right. I just want it on the plan set somewhere.
But I was just
be- Well,
telling
the
him,
cover
if you
sheet, does the cover
purchase
sheet consider the
this
plan set, Barbara?
prior to it being recorded,
No,
then
it's
you're gonna
not.
wanna change the plan to have your
Cover
name
sheet
as
is
the
Depends on what's
owner.
being recorded. If only sheet one is
So it
being recorded,
reflects
we
who the
won't
true
know
owner
that.
will be.
I don't know if they're adding another sheet.
Yeah, I don't know what she actually gets. 1 and 2 might actually get recorded.
The whole plan set gets recorded. You sign the plan and whatever they submitted all goes.
No, only the
No.
subdivision plan gets recorded.
Oh, okay.
And then we keep a Mylar here for our records.
I think Barbara was right. It should be on the actual plan. The applicant should be required to have his person put it on the plan, make it number 11 on the first page, so that if the cover sheet gets lost when its plans are passed around, as it could possibly get lost, it's on the plan, right next to his signature that he's a licensed land surveyor. So that's where the board wants it, Joanne. We want it on the plan set.
You want the
This-
notes as we normally do, the conditions of approval?
No, the one note prior to the issuance of building permit.
Right, that would go on there, but also the conditions of approval will be
Yeah,
there.
because that's what condition number
But they're on
says.
the cover sheet though, right, Joanne, you
There,
said?
there is no cover sheet here, it's just, this is
So
the,
where would they be on that then?
it's sheet 1 of 4. They'd have to make room for it somewhere over here.
Conditions of approval have to be put onto the plan sheet.
Yes.
Okay, well then it'll be there.
Yeah, the whole thought behind that is that we have them there. We can make sure they're all checked off before it comes across.
All right, that's
Desk
enough
to sign.
discussion.
This still gets back to the same
So
thing,
we-
we're signing a plan before everything
So-
is done.
Right, so the note is still getting added to the conditions of approval, and the representation is all of those conditions of approval will be on sheet 1.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a motion to approve, it's been seconded, and we've been discussing it. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. You're all set.
Thank you. You get it?
Oh, okay.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
All right, Joe, we have a new application tonight, map 35, lot 8. Could you tell us what's going on?
Yes, so this is property that, recently there was a house on the property that was demolished, and they built a new house. It is in the commercial zone, and it's directly abutting the bus station, or where the buses are parked on
Truck
East
center.
Union Street, the truck center, thank you. So what they're here for is a waiver for the driveway setback. And the reason they need the waiver is because they need a 10-foot setback, and the closest, the setback encroachment is not like perfectly straight, it kind of goes off a little bit, but, so, the closest side is 1.7 feet at the nearest point, and the proposed driveway will encroach 8.3 on the side lot line setback, so it goes from 8.3 to 1.7. And there is in your packet, there was an email from Eric Gustafson, who is the person who
All right,
handles.
I think I should stop you because we haven't done it correctly. I don't see it on here. Do we need to find this as complete and ready for review and all that business?
Yes, it is
Joe?
complete and
Barbara,
has
could you
no
please make a
regional
motion?
impact.
I'll make a motion to accept the application for map 35 lot 8, waiver for driveway setback as complete with no regional impact, and I think that's it.
And one waiver?
Well, I think
It's a
That's the
waiver. There is a
that's
waiver
the
request.
application.
Yeah, that's all
Yeah,
it
but
is.
I thought I said for the waiver of the driveway setback,
for
maybe I didn't say
discussion
waiver.
purposes only, like usual.
Well, no, this is, the only vote we're taking is the waiver, so it's not, we're not
It's a
accepting
different
it.
type of waiver.
If it's a different, there's nothing else happening but the waiver, so we don't need to say for acceptance purposes
I'll
only.
second it.
Okay, a motion's been made to find the application complete, ready to review, no regional impact. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. So Joanne, I'm sorry I cut you off, continue.
That's okay. So there's a report in here from Eric Gustafson, who handles the driveway permits, explaining why he needs what he's asking for. But basically, he wants to square off the driveway so that he can fit 2 cars versus 1. The old house that was there had a 1-car attached garage, and he just had a driveway wide enough for the
I
1
don't
car.
believe there's a garage on the old house.
No, there was no.
Or maybe it
garage.
was just the driveway, it was just
Yeah.
a skinny driveway for 1 car.
Yep.
And when DPW redid this road last year, we kind of dictated where that curb cut was.
Yeah, so
in
the curb
sidewalk.
cut's not changing.
Yeah, exactly. So they were limited to where their driveway could really go based on where our curb cut was, unless they were to tear up our road, which was under moratorium, so.
That's fine. Looks like they want to make it wider though, right, Scott?
Yeah, so.
So they want to pull your curbing out?
So they don't want to pull the curbing out. What they really want to do is just widen it after the curb cut.
Okay,
So,
all right, so go ahead, Joanne. Okay, once again.
So that's really basically it. I did add a condition for a number 2, it would be that about the pavers. Pervious pavers shall be used for storm water control. The owner shall take the necessary precautions such as installing driveway markers or fencing during snow removal.
so Joanne, I had one, I don't know if I'd call it a comment more than a point that I wanted to make sure the applicant understood was they currently have a shoreline permit for this project because the entire property is within the shoreline. So I think this needs to go through DES because it's a change to their shoreline permit. So I just want to make sure that that's
Okay.
done. And I'm sure Joe can speak to that when he comes up, but I just don't, I think I just sent that in an email with my other comments, so maybe that's why I didn't.
Oh, it
Quite
didn't
make
get
it
in
here.
here, yeah.
So that was the only thing I wanted to.
So what did you
clarify.
say your second condition of approval was, Joanne? Impervious pavers, you said?
Pervious pavers shall be used for storm.
Pervious pavers?
Oh, it's impervious. I wrote
No,
it
it's
wrong.
pervious.
No, it's pervious.
Oh, pervious.
You want it to be pervious.
Yes,
I
they
think
want
that's
the
what
water
they're
to go through.
suggesting, and I believe that's what the
That's
rest of
fine.
the driveway already is proposed as.
And what
Yes.
else did you put on your
The-
suggested condition with that?
The owner shall take the necessary precautions such as installing driveway markers or fencing during snow removal. That's because they're so close to the property line.
Okay. All right. Board members have questions for staff?
So I would add New Hampshire DES approval required for modification of the shoreline permit.
Yeah, I think that they at least need to reach out to DES to make sure.
Okay.
But this is okay to do.
TS 204, what'd you say it was?
Their shoreline permit.
Mean like a modification?
Yeah, it's like an amendment to their existing permit.
Okay. Any other questions? Joe, come on up. For the record, since I already know your name, you tell the rest of the word.
So good evening, I'm Joe Wickert. I'm here tonight on behalf of Shane Coonan, who's the owner. Scott probably knows more about this part of it than I do, unfortunately. So Shane's out of town, I'm covering the meeting for him, but we did do a survey of the property, but Shane actually had gotten the shoreline permit and was working with DPW on it. So I believe, the summary was pretty accurate. Shane would like to add the additional asphalt, the permeable, the pavers, the block pavers on the east side of this driveway. And I think part of this was he thought it was gonna line up with the curb cut, and so there was a little bit of confusion on that end. On his part, DPW has been working with him. We're here tonight for the waiver as Joanna mentioned, we're gonna be 1.7 feet at the worst. They are gonna hold to the reconfigured curb cut, and I think all the expansion happens after you get past the sidewalk. So there's not gonna be any impact to the town infrastructure. He was agreeable to doing the permeable pavers, so water runoff hopefully shouldn't be an issue, but I will tell him that he needs to contact the reviewer at DES and get like an email, either an amended, I'm not sure, depending on the numbers or whatever, but I'll ask him to get an email for Joanne that he can send in that says, they looked at it and they're good with the change.
I also just don't want him to get in trouble for modifying
Right.
his site without DES approval.
Yeah, that's, like I said, unfortunately, my office didn't do the permit, so I don't know if he's at like 19.99%.
Yeah.
I think he's well under just because it's a large lot.
Yeah,
There's not
and
a lot
they're
of lot
pervious
coverage.
pavers,
Correct.
so
Yeah,
I don't
Did he
think it'll
do it
be a big deal.
himself?
yes. Yep. So, I think I think we're fine with it. And then Shane had, in his request, he's sort of thinking ahead because of some physical limitations. And he's just trying to allow for 2-car wide with the possibility to add a ramp if needed later on.
Board members? Anybody besides me see the big problem with this? This is a brand-new house. You could have designed the driveway to meet the regulations from the beginning, instead of building a house out to the dimensions which were his setbacks. Now that he just finished building a new house, he's in here asking for permission to get a waiver from our regulations, which would have been unnecessary had the house been properly designed and cited with what the uses were going to be. So I personally don't like this request for a waiver, and I will vote against it. Well, if nobody has any questions for the...
No, I did, when you talked about the demolition permit, I did sort of wonder what we were doing. So when was the demolition permit in the building on this?
Last fall.
So within the last year.
We've been working on it all over the winter and into this summer.
Yeah, the foundation went in over the winter. I think they're getting pretty close to being finished with the whole home.
Well, since everybody's quiet, I'm gonna open the public hearing. And it is 8:15. Is anyone here that wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members.
I guess I'll just comment that I can understand the frustration of a new house being constructed and, you know, if this wasn't really maybe planned, but this is also a very narrow lot and is constrained, so trying to, I imagine that there would have been challenges to construct a single-family dwelling that could have accommodated and met the side setback for the driveway. Not to say that it couldn't have been designed to maybe reduce the need for a waiver, but I can understand that given the constraints of this lot, this is not your typical, you know, 1 or 1.5 acre lot we're talking about. It's, you know, third of an acre, so.
On the other hand, these lots are very desirable because they're on the river, and that's why people build on them. So, you know, the design of this was to maximize the water side of the yard and put it as close to the road, you know, as they could make it manageable. And the price for doing that is you have setbacks that can't be used, which limit your configuration.
I was looking for the 150-foot setbacks from the river on here, and I don't see them.
Yeah, they're not on this
I see a
specific, but-
25-foot Piscataquag River line to what looks like a rear setback line.
Yeah, so this is an older plot plan.
Okay, Joe?
When we originally submitted this plot plan, you know, the lot predates whatever it is, 1999. So because it predated 99, we had looked at it as the wetland setback, the current wetland setback didn't apply. And part of what the issue and the hardship for Shane is that this plan, I think, was actually approved originally for the building permit, and then like subsequent, or he was told it was approved, and then when he came back to get the approval, the code enforcement officer had looked at it, and there is another ordinance that says there is a 100-foot surface water setback that is not, it's not date dependent. That doesn't get waived, that has to be adhered to. So they had to reconfigure the house to try to squeeze it further away from the water to make the 100-foot setback. So, you know, they said, we did the as-built, we did the, you know, the original plan and the as-built. Shane has been doing all the subsequent work. But my understanding was, you know, part of this was during the building process, you know, he, whether rightly, wrongly, thought, you know, it could go wider, and then also in the last year, he's had some health issues that he was trying to plan in advance for. So, you know, I guess I understand the chairman's concern, but part of this would be, you know, it is a narrow lot. It's actually narrower, when the survey ended up being narrower than what they originally thought it was. So this house has been kind of reconfigured a couple times to actually fit into the setback. So, you know, we were hopeful that between the permeable pavement, working with DPW, and, you know, the reconfiguration of the driveway, that, you know, the board will look favorably on the request. But, you know, that's probably the best I have right now, because I don't have some of the more historical info.
Thank you, Joe.
I also like to point out, this board occasionally looks at what might happen to an abutter's land under different ownership. If the use of the property to the right of this applicant's land were to change, there would be no construction immediately next to their boundary line, such that two houses would be very, extremely close together. There would, a major sewer line is in that edge of the property, and there'd be no vertical construction on that property.
Do you know how wide your easement is right there? It looks like it's probably wide enough that between the building setback and the easement, there would just be this tiny triangle.
It's very narrow easement.
It's at least 35 feet, because it has to be wide enough to accommodate access to it for
Okay.
construction.
Yeah, so once you throw that easement line over the center of that thing, this triangle over here is basically
Yes.
non-buildable.
But that doesn't mean that just because someone can't build next to that driveway, that we should say, oh yeah, go ahead and put it in.
I'm just we occasionally look at what might happen to the abutter future property. There would be no vertical construction there that would be unreasonably close to another house.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Call for a vote then. Let's, somebody make a motion. If there's no more discussion.
All right, I'll make a motion to grant the waiver with the findings that I don't know that we have standards in the development regulations for.
I think we have to make findings when we
Do
do
we
it,
need
right?
findings for?
Only for
okay.
approval.
All right, then I would just make a motion or to grant the waiver is requested with the 3 conditions of approval stated by Joanne. So the driveway permit, the pervious pavement should be used in the appropriate notes that Joanne stated, and then that coordination with DES on modification of the shoreland permit if necessary.
Colleen's made the motion. Anybody gonna second it?
Yes, sir. I'll second it.
Mark has seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, so I will ask for a clear vote when you vote, so we can get the recording secretary, get it down.
David, yes.
No, I wasn't asking for a vote.
You don't want to.
All those in favor of granting the waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'm opposed.
I'm
So do-
opposed.
3 opposed?
Yeah.
And 4 yays. That how we got it?
Yep.
4, 3, anybody abstaining? Nobody left, 0. Motion granted, the motion to grant the waiver is affirmative.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Joe.
Joe, anything else tonight?
So before you end the meeting, I just wanted to, I think you need to appoint the subcommittee for the zoning changes.
Let's ask for volunteers.
Okay.
Anybody want to volunteer to be on the zoning subcommittee?
I volunteered.
Okay, we have 1.
I'll volunteer.
Barbara's 2, same as last year. Anybody else? Anybody gonna vote that's different? Okay, so we have 2. Is that acceptable?
Okay, yeah, and then we'll have someone from zoning and the building inspector.
That's to begin to work on zoning changes for the ballot.
Correct. So, the first hearing has to be held somewhere around, we haven't put the dates together yet, but somewhere around December 5th.
Okay. Anything else, Joanne?
No, that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Let me, when do we have to publish before the public hearing? How many days in advance?
12, including the hearing date, including the date of publication.
Okay. So it'll be before Thanksgiving.
So So
All
we'll
right, so
have to
Phil has
decide
made a
on the
motion to
second.
adjourn. Does anyone second it?
Second.
Richard? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, GTV.